Up on this hour of One America News, millions of Americans are hunkering down as Winter Storm Stella pummels the East Coast. We have the latest as local officials say they're preparing for the worst. But the weather isn't stopping President Trump from conducting business at the White House. More on his first meeting with the Saudi royals since the election. And later, the House Budget Committee reschedules its markup of House Republicans' health care bill. Why the decision was pushed back. Today is Tuesday, March 14th. You're watching One America News. Thanks so much for joining us this hour. I'm Jennifer Franco. Winter Storm Stella is blasting up the East Coast, dumping snow, sleet, and freezing rain from the Carolinas to New England. Blizzard warnings are in effect for 9 states from Pennsylvania to Maine. In Pennsylvania, residents could get 2 to 4 inches per hour, while northern New England will get hit the hardest. The National Weather Service says New England and New York, which you're taking a live look at here now, will get 2 feet of snow, while the Big Apple will get 4 to 8 inches. In the meantime, thousands of flights have been canceled, causing a travel nightmare for Americans from coast to coast. Nathan Frandino has more on these treacherous conditions.
It brushed by North Carolina, but it's building in it.
In the meantime, the mayor of New York City has declared a state of emergency and is urging locals to avoid unnecessary travel. Mayor Bill de Blasio spoke to New Yorkers Monday night and pleaded with them to stay off the roads during the initial phases of the storm. He also said the icy conditions would continue at a very high level. The National Weather Service has issued a 24-hour blizzard warning and says people should brace for possible whiteout conditions and power outages.
We expect this storm overall to be in the range of 16 inches to 20 inches of snow. The high end right now remains, according to the last National Weather Service report, as much as 24 inches. That is a huge amount of snow, and again, a lot of it will happen in a very concentrated period of time.
New York Governor Andrew Cuomo has directed stockpile resources to be distributed to public agencies throughout the state, including sandbags and electrical generators. Well, President Trump plans to spend today lobbying for House Republicans' repeal bill for Obamacare. The president will begin his day by meeting with the defense minister of Saudi Arabia. The two leaders are expected to discuss strengthening bilateral relations and regional issues of mutual interest. Then the president will shift to health care, as he'll reportedly participate in 2 sets of meetings. First, he plans to speak with the CEO of Anthem Health Insurance and Health and Human Services Secretary Tom Price. The president will also discuss the repeal bill for Obamacare with House Speaker Paul Ryan and House Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy. In the meantime, the House Budget Committee reschedules its markup of House Republicans' health care bill because of potentially harsh weather in the nation's capital. Originally scheduled for today, the committee announced the meeting would be moved to Thursday because of the snowstorms that are expected in Washington, D.C. This comes after the repeal bill for Obamacare passed 2 key panels last week. If it passes a House Budget Committee, it'll then need to pass through the Rules Committee before it eventually goes to a full floor vote. And in another shift from Obama-era policies, President Trump has reportedly given the CIA power to conduct drone strikes against suspected terrorists. Monday, U.S. officials were quoted saying Central Intelligence was granted the new authority shortly after the president's inauguration. Under Obama, the CIA only used drones for surveillance, while the military carried out the strikes, creating more transparency in airstrike reports. The officials say drones will only be used for operations in Syria, but it was noted the agency may be able to order strikes in other areas as well. Well, the president also signed an executive order calling for a thorough audit of every federal department and agency. Monday, the president signed what's being called the Comprehensive Plan for Reorganizing the Executive Branch. The order looks to evaluate how federal funds are spent among specific departments. He calls the order long overdue and says the goal is to save money and improve services. The president claims this will make the federal government efficient, effective, and accountable to the American people.
Based on this input, we will develop a detailed plan to make the federal government work better, reorganizing, consolidating, and eliminating where necessary. In other words, making the federal government more efficient and very, very cost productive.
He went on to say that he wants to empower his cabinet to make their agencies as lean and as effective as possible. In the meantime, the Senate Intelligence Panel receives a response to its request for evidence former President Obama wiretapped phones at Trump Tower. On Monday, the Senate Intelligence Chair Richard Burr said he received a sufficient response about the wiretapping claims. He added that he's talked to the appropriate people, but wouldn't yet confirm if the president's allegations were true. This comes after the Trump administration asked for more time to comply with the House Intel Committee's request for evidence, proving President Trump's phones were wiretapped during the election by then-President Obama. The committee is set to hold a hearing on the investigation next Monday. Well, President Donald Trump voices his support and gratitude toward his administration at his very first cabinet meeting on Monday. One America's Bobby Dupree has more on what was discussed and who was missing from what President Trump called a historic meeting.
I'm proud to welcome everyone to our first official cabinet meeting.
President Donald Trump held his very...
The president's diplomatic advisor meets with the Israeli Prime Minister in Jerusalem. Reports say Jason Greenblatt spoke with Benjamin Netanyahu on Monday for more than 5 hours. Greenblatt reportedly reaffirmed President Trump's commitment to Israel's security. Additionally, the two spoke about the effort to help Israel and Palestine achieve a lasting peace through direct negotiations. Greenblatt is also expected to visit the West Bank today to meet with the president of the Palestinian National Authority. In the meantime, a new report suggests the Trump administration has instructed the State Department to cut more than 50% of funding to the United Nations. The administration is also reportedly considering a 36% cut in humanitarian aid programs. The U.S. spends an estimated $10 billion on the UN annually. As the White House prepares to release its 2018 budget proposal, it has yet to be confirmed if details of the proposed cuts will be included. Last month, White House officials said the new budget would contain $54 billion in domestic non-discretionary spending cuts in order to boost defense spending. Straight ahead this hour on One America News, a New Jersey man pleads not guilty to a series of violent crimes. What attorneys are saying about the mountain of evidence, coming up next.
One of President Donald Trump's cabinet picks is one step closer to taking office after clearing a hurdle in the Senate. We've got the latest on Representative Ryan Zinke's confirmation. And the president's pick to be Director of National Intelligence is set to have his Senate confirmation hearing later today. We've got more on the man he chose to be Intel Chief. Plus, the president is also set to lay out his agenda later today during his first address to a joint session of Congress. We have what's in store for tonight's speech. Today is Tuesday, February 28th, and this edition of One American News starts right now. Good morning, and thanks for waking up with us here on One America News. I'm Ryan Hofel. Let's get started with your top headlines. The Senate votes to move forward with the nomination of President Donald Trump's pick to lead the Department of the Interior. And senators cleared the way for Representative Ryan Zinke in a 67-31 vote, potentially setting up a final vote on his confirmation later today or Wednesday. And Zinke isn't expected to face opposition from Democrats as his nomination easily passed through the Senate Energy and Natural Resources Committee with support from both sides of the aisle. And during his confirmation hearing, the congressman said that he is absolutely against the transfer or sale of public land. Meanwhile, the president's pick to be Director of National Intelligence, Dan Coats, is set to have his Senate confirmation hearing later today. And the president announced the choice back in January, saying Coats has demonstrated the deep knowledge and expertise required to be Intel Chief. If confirmed, Coats will lead the 16 federal agencies that are collectively called the intelligence community. And the former senator previously served on the Senate Intelligence Committee and was an ambassador to Germany during the George W. Bush administration. President Donald Trump holds talks with China's top diplomats for the first time since becoming the nation's leader. Here's more on what the White House says was a chance to discuss shared security interests and a possible meeting between both countries' top leaders.
One step closer.
And the president is set to outline his year one agenda when he delivers his first address to a joint session of Congress later today. The White House says today's speech will cover a number of topics, including the economy, immigration, infrastructure, and Obamacare reform. And officials claim the address will look to push the president's bold agenda and give an optimistic look towards the next 4 years. And the speech isn't the president's State of the Union address, but rather is said to be a speech that will offer a vision of where he wants to take the country moving forward. And House Speaker Paul Ryan and Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell say they look forward to a positive, upbeat presentation later today from the president. And the GOP leaders met with the president at the White House on Monday to speak about the agenda he would lay out today during his address. And they say lawmakers need to get to work on solving people's problems, adding their goal is to improve living conditions for everybody in the U.S. And Ryan also said that House Republicans are working on a plan to repeal and replace Obamacare, giving Americans more choice and freedom.
Yeah, so obviously we're going to be rolling out our plan very soon. That's the legislative process. Let's remember one thing. Obamacare is collapsing under its own weight right now. Plans are pulling out right now. Obamacare, to quote an insurance head of an insurance company, is in a death spiral. So this is a rescue mission. We have to step in and prevent Obamacare from getting worse, from collapsing, and we will replace it with a law that's better, that's more durable, that lowers costs, improves access to more affordable plans.
The House Speaker went on to say that the plan for a new patient-centered healthcare system would likely be released in the spring. And a group of Republican senators are demanding a full repeal of Obamacare, saying they won't accept anything else. Senators Rand Paul, Ted Cruz, and Mike Lee each took to Twitter to voice their opinions, complete with the hashtag #FullRepeal. The tweets come after a draft House GOP plan was leaked late last week. And the three lawmakers argue a repeal measure passed by the Senate in 2015 should be the, quote, bare minimum for new repeal legislation. And the 2015 bill kills core elements of the law, such as subsidies, taxes, and Medicaid expansion. And experts say the GOP could fail to rescind Obamacare should the three senators refuse to vote for anything short of a full repeal. And the Trump administration is set to propose a 24% cut in spending by the Environmental Protection Agency. And reports on Monday suggested the cuts would set the EPA's new budget to around $6 billion. That's down from its current amount of $8 billion. And this comes after the White House sent spending blueprints to federal agencies before its budget rollout, which is set for sometime in March. And the president is reportedly looking to slash $54 billion in domestic discretionary spending, which would then go towards the military. And if the planned cuts for the EPA are implemented, it would be the lowest budget total for the agency since the early 1990s. And Attorney General Jeff Sessions is contemplating a crackdown on recreational marijuana use and possession. In an interview on Monday, Sessions said because the potency of marijuana has grown, there's more violence around it based on the big money involved in selling it. The Attorney General said a series of guidelines about federal enforcement is under review, which as of now limits the government's role in enforcing laws in states where marijuana is legal. Currently, recreational cannabis is legal in 8 states and 20 others allow it for medical use. And the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee says so far there is no evidence of links between Russia and President Donald Trump's campaign. One America's Taisi Parenche has the latest on that investigation.
The House Intelligence Committee.
With that, we're taking our first break here on this hour of One America News. 3 people are dead after a small plane crashes into a neighborhood in Southern California. After the break, what authorities are saying about that incident as 2 people are recovering in the hospital. We'll be right back.